Thirsty Thursday number 42. Hang on a second. I got the little thing for that. Just as a side, I will be the resident slack ass for tonight. I've been off all day, and Trevor's been kind enough to keep me in line. So cheers. Good to see you, my friend. It's been a while.
Mysterious styrofoam cup.
I tell you, I love drinking out of a styrofoam cup. Yeah, I know it's terrible for the environment, but I get my money's worth out of it.
I get like, but you know what? I rewash and reuse some of them, but you know what? I can put whatever I want in here. This could be iced tea. This could be moonshine. You just don't know.
Yeah,
but
yeah, and you know what? I'm okay with it.
Take it where you will.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Yep. So, as we were planning for this Thirsty Thursday, we were talking to the guys and talking to Mike and Bobby, and one by one, unfortunately, Bobby and Mike fell off. Bobby is, where is Bobby tonight? Trevor, do you remember? You always have an excellent place.
I think he was either at a concert, a wine tasting, or like a.
Is it his crochet night?
I don't think it's macrame. It wasn't crochet. Okay. I think it was macrame night. So I think he's making some nice lace doilies tonight. And
I tell you what,
I'm really not sure because it's not my wheelhouse, man. But I tell you what, his knitting, or what is it, knit purl? I don't know, but he's the expert on the difference between crochet, knitting, and macrame. But whatever he's doing, I wish him the best of luck, and I hope whatever. I just want to get like a good sleeveless vest or sweater out of it for this winter season. Whatever he's knitting, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, we should see if we can commission him for Strike the Box knitted or crocheted or whatever they are vests. I think that would be nice.
Watch caps. No, I think for the winter season, we have several months, so I think he can either knit or crochet or macrame some nice watch caps. He can probably put your station design in there too. And then where's Mike tonight?
Mike was a last minute notification that he wasn't going to be here. He has fallen into the Dungeons and Dragons cult. Fortunately, I had a little bit of seniority on that, so I could get out of it tonight. But tonight was the ceremonial induction, so he is taking part in that. So
I understand, and I understand he also bought a brand new set of dihedral dice. So I wish him the best of luck in his D&D Dungeon Master things he's doing tonight. And
those are nice dice he got too.
What's that?
I said those are nice dice he got too. That's some quality dice he got.
Oh, absolutely. So him and the rest of the Dragon Slayers, I wish him the best of luck tonight, but we'll go on without him.
That's right. So with that being said, now that we've made up these terrible excuses for our friends not being here, and that's one of the consequences of not showing up. I've been victim.
Oh, we can do better than that too. But I mean, there's certain things the FTC will not allow us to say. Yeah. So
Yeah. But with that being said, the topic for tonight is a little bit of this and that. So we really don't have a topic of conversation. So if there is something that you guys want to hear or something that you want us to talk about,
we do.
And you're more than welcome to get involved with. I'll send you a link. If we're so inclined to get you on here. But if there's something that you want us to hear us to talk about, put it in the comments, and we'll take that tangent and run with it. Other than that, there are a couple of things that we were talking about, and we'll see where they go tonight. So, Trevor, what's the latest with you guys? How are things going down in West Palm and all that kind of stuff? I know we were talking in the pre-show you're getting ready for hurricane season.
Yeah, overall pretty well. Next week's the official beginning of hurricane season, which I know, hurricanes don't actually follow the calendar like we do. Nevertheless, it's just like it is in the Mid-Atlantic, kind of hurry up and wait. We've made all our preparations. We reviewed and triple reviewed everything. The only thing we're missing right now is a hurricane, which we're really not looking forward to having one. But nevertheless, same as for the Mid-Atlantic, and like you and I talked about pre-show, the people I feel for the most, other than, of course, all the East Coast, but the Carolinas, especially North Carolina, South Carolina certainly too, but the Outer Banks always take the brunt of the abuse for the Mid-Atlantic typically. And so, again, thinking about those folks with the upcoming hurricane season, not that it can't affect us all equally. And, certainly hurricanes are equal opportunity destructors, but the Outer Banks and the folks working there in the Carolinas, they really have their hands full where they jut out geographically on the map. And, fortunately, especially in the Chesapeake Bay region, a lot of times, the hurricanes will at least, if they don't have a direct hit, they'll at least skirt the Outer Banks and, break up to a degree that it reduces the severity for the folks up there, which, I'm very happy for, but again, very grateful for the fact that those folks, persevere year after year, decade after decade, century after century to, be the forerunners of the hurricane season up in that region of the country. Other than that, I mean, everything's kind of status quo here. We're kind of going along with all the slings and arrows that the rest of the country is going through. One thing real quick, man, if I could, we're coming up on Memorial Day weekend, which I know, in Ocean City and a lot of the mid-Atlantic and northeastern places and, even further south, that's the big kickoff to the summer season. And, we have fun, we have our barbecues, we kind of set our clocks by that and do a lot of things. But then again, Memorial Day is to look at the people who have served and fought and died for the preservation of our country and our freedoms. And with that, I was doing a little bit of research, and roughly, I'm going to give you some rough statistics. Since 1775, about a little over 1.3 million Americans have died in service to their country. And that's just in battle. That doesn't include the people who've been wounded, who've been made ill from battle, or have taken their own lives from the consequences of battle. But just think about just those killed in battle is about 1.3 million. If you want to kind of put that in a little bit more perspective, since 1775, and work with me historically here, I understand 1776 is the beginning, but 1775 is when we started, having skirmishes and fighting on behalf of our country. Marine Corps was founded in 1775, just saying. But about
Skip on here, he was there.
Yes. Well, yes, which I'll do my imitation of Skip Carey at the rifle range, during qualification. Well, I shall do it now. So my impression of Skip Carey at the rifle range, go ahead.
Hang on, we're going to put you on the big screen.
Okay.
Oh, shit. Not me. Not me. How do I change this back?
That's not it.
There you go. That's it.
All right. So Skip seen me do this before, which I thought was funny. I don't think he saw the same humor, but essentially Skip Carey qualifying on his rifle when he was in the military. Anyway, okay. So in case you couldn't figure that out, that was a musket. But nevertheless, my point behind all this is, if you think about it, if you take that math and divide it out from 1775 until today, 2022, and this isn't exact math, but just kind of work with me on this. It's roughly about 5,700 Americans have died per year since the inception of our country in defense of this country. So that's a small to medium town. Think about that. Ocean City in the off season, total local population 8 to 10,000. Berlin, a little bit more. Salisbury is obviously a more metropolitan region, but roughly about 5,700 people per year over the history of our country have died in direct service to it. And that's, again, I take nothing away, and I certainly want to recognize those people who have served and perished outside of the combat zone as a result of what they experienced. Those numbers are much higher. So, if you think about it, this Memorial Day, we not only thank our veterans and those people who made the supreme sacrifice, but look at all the people who serve this country, and don't just thank them on Veterans Day and Armed Services or Armed Forces Day and Memorial Day. Thank them every day, because there's the things they've done, seen and unseen, that contribute to where we are today as a country. And whether we stand united or stand divided on things, they've still supported us regardless. So yeah, I want to send out a thank you to all of our veterans, past, present, and future, and as well as those who made the sacrifice so we can live like we do today. So I just want to put that out there before we continue forward, Ben.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great point. One of the things as you were talking about that, it reminded me of another um, incident that I think is pertinent to talk about this evening, and that is the events that happened yesterday in Texas with the school shooting. So um, Ovada, and I have no idea how to pronounce that. Ovada, Texas. Um, I believe it was 18 is what the report is now.
I think it was 19 kids and 2 adults. That I know they're still down there in
Yeah.
Uvalde, which is it's not too far from San Antonio, where we've had the privilege to teach before.
Okay. Um, so 19 kids or 19 children and adults, um, that were perished that perished in that, and you know, I think a lot of times they talk about the shooter, and it's one of those things that I firmly believe, and I think I learned this from Mike Hickman. But don't say his name. Like, he's not the one that we need to be talking about. We need to be talking about the families, um, and the folks that were involved in that. But that shitbag, he's dead, um, and that's the place for him. So keep
True.
those families and those in your thoughts and prayers, especially as we go into this Memorial Day weekend, and we're thinking about, like Trevor said, our armed forces that have given it all. So
And
um,
Ben, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'll dovetail into what you had said. And our brother Hickman probably remembers this from one of the classes that I attended with him many years ago. But when they started talking about any of these mass homicide situations, whether it's a shooter, somebody who flies airplanes into a building, somebody who takes a moving box truck into a federal building, someone who runs an SUV through a Christmas parade, evil is evil. And I detest when people start to politicize this for their own narratives on any side of the coin. We face that evil every day as first responders, as military, and our dispatchers, the same thing. They're the ones who get these frantic calls and have to try to make sense out of this. So to that end, what I'm getting at is, we have a lot of stuff going on, but I still remember one of our instructors in a class who said, who is, who's Dylan Klebold, who's this, who's that. We're like, oh, those are people from the Columbine, and they went from all these mass homicides. And to your point, Ben, they named all of the perpetrators of these mass homicides, and of course, we knew who they were. Then they went down this list to say, who's Dave Smith, who's John Jones, who's this, and all of us were like, that was the first officer through the door. That was the first paramedic who treated a kid. That was the first, special agent that went through and terminated or neutralized the suspect. We never hear their names. We don't typically, other than one or two news cycles, we don't hear the names of the victims of these. But and again, I think shitbag is appropriate.
it's
That
probably one of the nicer terms for it.
Yeah, it is, and
Yeah.
we don't give these people the glory that they're seeking, but the people who went in harm's way, and the people who have succumbed to unfortunately the evil that's in the world, those are the names we need to recite and remember. Not these people who, for whatever reason, their cheese has slipped off their cracker and they've decided to perpetrate these crimes with no matter what means and methods. Again, evil is evil. I'm not going to get into political ideology discussions, positions, or anything else, because you and I, Ben, both we've seen the outcome of evil people and bad decisions,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, the result is the same. Not to minimize people's concerns or outlooks or anything else, but let's look at the current situation and support the people who are grieving right now and help them get into that healing process. No matter what steps they need to take to get there, because this is going to be lifelong for them. This isn't something that's going to go away at the end of this news cycle when something else happens. This is something that affects them for not just the rest of their lives, but potentially for generations. So,
Yeah, yeah. And I just have one more comment on that, and I think
sure.
we move on. You see a lot of stuff through social media, the news, and they're talking about the teachers and ideas of arming them and that kind of stuff. And I know that there were places in out west, particularly, that have done that. Um, but one of the things that I don't think we talk about enough is like everything that the teachers do for our students. We wouldn't be in the positions that we are, specifically right now, Trevor and I, if it weren't for somebody that took an interest in us and thought that we could do more than what we were doing at the time, because we were probably doing something dumb, but took an interest in us and changed our education and changed our plan. If it weren't for teachers, I am a little partial. I married a teacher. I worked in a high school for 14 years. I have a lot of teacher friends, and I just want to say that we see what you're doing. We know what you're doing. We've been there. We know, um, and we know that it's been tough. Everything that you went through with the pandemic, everything that you guys are going through now, that the kids are coming back to school and they don't know how to interact with each other because they've been at home for 2 years. Um, but the summer's coming. You guys enjoy it. You deserve it. Um, and everybody should thank a teacher for at one point or the other pointing you back in the right direction and believing in you. So
And Ben, if you don't mind, absolutely cheers to our educators by all means. And I'll say this, and this is meant in the most uplifting way. So please don't take what I'm about to say in any kind of negative connotation. But example, good or bad, is a very powerful motivator. And I've had some teachers and educators that I've respected, maybe not at the time, but learned to respect because of the message they gave me. Might not have resonated at the time, but did later on. And there were some that were maybe not so good, but nevertheless, their message did resonate with me and motivated me, whether it was positive or negative motivation, to get where I am today. And I still thank them. I won't mention one by name who, many times she took me up to the executioner's chalkboard to do some math problems, and I didn't understand, but nevertheless, I still thank that educator because that person motivated me, inspired me. So whether it was whatever means or methods, I think that our educators and to that end, Ben, we look at in the fire service, any officer, any crew leader, any instructor, but our educators, they're mentors, they're motivators, and you can either inspire or derail someone's entire career based on something arbitrary that you say or do one day. And that's kind of, I think, where you and I had talked pre-show. Excuse me. You and I had talked pre-show about some of those exact things to say, you know what, each one of us is in charge of our own destiny. And there's certain things that are enumerated to us as our responsibilities and powers, and there's certain things that we just can't do. However, um, we're going to have good and bad bosses. We're going to have good and bad instructors. We're going to be not only given the complete access to somebody's experience, but we're also going to be limited by someone's experience who's teaching us as well. So you and I talked about that as kind of like a little bit of a basis for tonight's topic and show. And you and I are on not completely different, but you and I are on a little bit different spectrums of our careers. And we there's some things that we have some common experiences, and other things where we don't. So to that end, I kind of want you to fire away with some stuff and just ask some of those questions or throw some of those things out there that um, that challenge you or that either make you think or piss you off. So with that, Ben, I'm throwing it back at you.
all right, sounds good. And again, going back to those folks that are watching, if there's something that resonates with you and you want to get involved, we'd love to have the viewer participation. This show and every show. So if there's something that you guys see, I see you, Timmy. Congratulations on the marriage. I know it's a day late and a dollar short, but congrats. Um, So one of the things that you had mentioned, Trevor, was you can motivate or you can derail someone's outlook or career, and I would say that if that person is so polarizing that um, it's in the process of derailing your career, that that's something that you need to take ownership of and say that when I'm in that position, that's not how I'm going to do things. So you still learn from that, but you learn what you're not going to do. Um, I was a young athletic trainer. I had a supervisor that was phenomenal. Was an excellent clinician. Uh, was incredibly intelligent and knew all kinds of stuff. But the way that that person interacted with student athletes at times, you're like, what in the hell is going on? And one of the things that I took from that is I will never be like that. And I think we have instructors like that. I mean, you talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. We've all had those instructors that we've taken stuff away from. Like you want to sign up for a class and you see who's teaching it. You're like, nah, I'll take it next time around or something like that. Um, I've had a similar experience where you see who's teaching it and you're like, man, I really don't like this person as an instructor. I don't really care for them as a human being, but they know this topic inside now. So you take the class because you respect that, knowing that like it's going to be tough, but you're going to get more out of the class that way. So that's one of the things that I just wanted to touch on as you were making that comment. But I think it's important to recognize that, again, if you see somebody that is doing something or there's an attitude or behavior that doesn't fit what you believe and what you think is right and the culture that you want to build, like that's on you partially, not entirely, but that's on you to take from that what you can to make yourself better, and then move forward and know that that's not how you're going to do things moving forward.
No, Ben, I agree with you. And to kind of come back to Timmy's question, and I'll be very direct in how I answer this. To me, everything is a process, and
I,
Bobby and I and you
I
have
just now
we
read his question. Sorry.
I know, but me, you, and Bobby have had this question about muscle memory and doing things to repetition. And I'm the same way in the morning. If I don't do, like, just like Timmy's saying, if I don't do you know t-shirt, underwear, uniform shirt, pants, socks, whatever order it is, if I go out of order or something distracts me, I'm kind of off for the day. But I've got to be adaptable enough to say, you know what, during that house fire, during that car wreck, during whatever, things aren't going to go in the order of my tactical check sheet. So, to me, I like the repetition. I like um, the familiarity of doing things, to muscle memory and to a process. I think it's a great thing, but don't be so rigid that if somebody throws a wrench in your process that you can't function. And here's what I mean. When I was teaching a lot of SCBA boot camp, and and you'll have to kind of date this a little bit, prior to the quick disconnects of the SCBAs, but I would bring somebody up front, like when I was at FDIC and I teach, and I'd say, okay, how many people here have ever changed an SCBA cylinder? Every freaking hand goes up. 200 people in the room, right? Great, give me a volunteer. And a lot of times I'd voluntold somebody, so I bring them up front, and here's some young firefighter full of piss and vinegar, and I say, how many times you changed an SCBA cylinder? Do you think? Give me a rough estimate. Oh, I say, are you a certified firefighter? Have you been? I said, so 100, 200, oh, at least 150, 200 times. Excellent. So you only have to do something between 17 and 32 times to become a habit. That's statistical whatever. I said, and I'd ask the same person. I said, do you know your ABCs? Yeah. I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. Here's an SCBA. Here's a spare cylinder. I want you to switch cylinders and recite your ABCs. So they're like this: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Boom, boom, boom. Not a problem. Great. Awesome. Thank you very much. You can multitask. You have officer potential. Righto. I said, now here's what I want you to do. I want you to do the exact same thing. I want you to change the SCBA cylinder. I want you to say your ABCs. but start with Q and go backwards. Q, P, O. I'm like, okay, and I'd let him go for a while, not long enough to embarrass him or intimidate him or anything else. So I'd let him go through a few letters. I said, okay, the first round, you did two things that you've done almost all your life since you were 3 years old and since you were 18, 23 years old, whatever the case. Two processes that you knew exceptionally well and you could do them simultaneously without disruption. You didn't multitask, you multi-switched. You actually did them both simultaneously. I said, all I did was change your process. There were still 26 letters in your alphabet. I didn't change your alphabet. I didn't give you like Swahili. You changed the same SCBA cylinder. I just told you Q and go backwards. I said, all I did was change your process. I said, that's where you need to, muscle memory is great, but if something interrupts your process, be able to adapt. And I've got to tell you, out of all the years that I've used that analogy, or having people like Bobby does this one, they'll say, cross your arms, take them apart, cross them again, take them apart, cross them the other way. I mean, people are like really awkward. So, but my point is that in all the years I've done that, there was one guy who literally, he's like, Q, O, P. I was like, boom, boom, boom. Like, he goes, well, I was in a Marine, sir. I'm like, have you ever been pulled over for drunk driving? My God, you're awesome. But but that guy, because he had been trained mentally to say, you know what? All the parts and pieces are still there. You just rearrange my process, and it's up to me to put them back in the order that I like. And so that's what I'm getting at. So to Tim's point, absolutely, there is a process of what I do every day, but if that process is interrupted, I still have to perform to that 100% for the people I'm serving, even though it's completely effed me up because, it's like, okay, wake up, urinate, coffee, TV, feed dog, feed cat, let dog out, so, but if anything goes out of that realm, that's what we have to look at, and that is, I know it's a simple question, but I think it's a very poignant question that Timmy brings up. Is regardless of what we're doing, we're creatures of habit. We enjoy process, but like Bobby, for example, and I'll pick on him in a very positive way. Bobby would take his webbing out of his pocket and literally throw it against the wall and jumble it up so it wasn't in that same configuration that he pulled it out of his pocket. So in case he dropped it in something else, he could adjust and adapt. So that's what I'm saying is it was as firefighters, paramedics, instructors, whatever the case is, we have to be adaptable because the scenarios do not follow the same playbook that we do. The playbook is a guideline, and if you can't adapt to that, if going out of sequence just completely explodes your head, then that's when you need to train yourself to have a different viewpoint of it. And to that same point, Ben, you and I talked about this earlier. There's a lot of things that occur throughout our careers that we don't understand why they occur. We just know they happen. And we make our snap judgments. I know younger in my career, there were some decisions that lieutenants, captains, chief officers made. And I either thought that they were the most brilliant individuals in the world or they were the dumbest son of a bitches that ever walked the face of the earth. And occasionally I was right. And a lot of times I wasn't because I didn't understand why they made that decision. They never owed me any explanation because they were my senior. They were my quote unquote superior. They were my officer. But those who took the time to educate me on the why behind their decision, and again, they owed me no explanation, helped me develop as a firefighter, as a crew leader, as a lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, chief officer, whatever the case is. And let me give you case in point. We're all full of piss and vinegar. We go through fire training, we get a couple calls under our belt, and we know just enough to make us dangerous. And we go to that call where, hey, we've had a couple fire calls, we got a little bit of heat on the back of our neck, and we think we know it all. We're the the 2520. We've been in between 2 years and 5 years, and think we got 20 years on the job. And remind me to talk about the whole thing about experience here in a minute. But when you have a chief officer or lieutenant or whomever pulls you out of a building, they had a reason. Good reason, bad reason, we don't know. It could be based on their limitations. It could be based on their experience, or somewhere in between. And I've always talked about the 222 rule. Where if I'm the instant commander and I say, hey, don't go any further. I don't want you going inside the building. We're going to take a stand right here. 2 minutes later, they're 2 feet closer to the building. They're asking me for 2 more minutes, where they are, and there's 2 more people on the hand line than they were originally. So you've always got that. I mean, the best analogy I've heard from this is like Dougie Scott told me years and years and years ago, and I know we bring Dougie up a lot, is he said, as company level officer, you're like essentially a dog owner. You have your dogs that's your crew. And you got to decide when to take the leash off and let them run, or snap that clip on and pull them back. But it's up to you to let them know, why you let them run and why you pulled them back. And that was just a lot of wisdom that it didn't sink in for, quite a while, but it made a lot of sense. And, same thing. I've been pulled out of a building where like, hey, Chief, 2 more minutes. We got this. They had a different picture on the outside of the building. And again, some could be based on their limitations. Some could be based on their abilities, but we don't know. But don't be afraid to have that conversation with your people, whether it's an after action formally around the kitchen table at the firehouse, on the tailboard. And, again, you don't have to justify yourself. Let's put all the bullshit aside, but tell your people why you made the decision that you made. It might open their eyes up a little bit. And, again, there's some things that I did earlier on in my career, which I'm like, holy shit, how the hell I survived that? But, I didn't have the full picture. So, to that end, seek that question instead of getting pissed off and upset and, oh, that dumb son of a bitch. You know what? Your lieutenant, captain, chief, they might be a dumb son of a bitch. Okay, well, let's speculate they are a dumb son of a bitch. But then again, they might not be. There might have been a good reason. And if you take the time to take a step back and say, let me see it through your lens, and then you get the picture, then you develop yourself as an officer. I can tell you in no uncertain terms, I've been pulled back from calls that I knew I could get that fire, but you know what? That chief who pulled me back had lost somebody in line of duty before. I didn't have that experience. I didn't know. But, my first response is, well, that's not me. That's them. That might be true, but you know what? They see things through a different lens. And, if they erred on the side of caution, then so be it.
Hey, if that's for me, I'm busy.
No, it's, I just, yeah. But, so that's kind of what I'm getting at, Ben, is, we have to be able to look at all the different, spectrums of what we do, and also appreciate where we are in our career. But don't be afraid to have those conversations, up, down, and across. And look, people's personalities are people's personalities. You might go up to a chief who pulled you out of a building and say, hey, chief, why'd you pull me out? And, they question your mother's lineage until you go pack sand. Okay, well, that might be their personality. Not nice, not right, but, at least you asked the question. Mm-hmm. But, hopefully somebody will say, let's have the conversation. The reason I pulled you out is because I saw A, B, C, and D. I didn't think it was safe, blah, blah. And again, people are people, they get butthurt if you start asking a question, and they might get defensive, but the way and manner in which you present something goes a long way too. If you're trying to learn, I still remember from many, many years ago, and you guys in Salisbury were instrumental in this, and the records boys, especially, they used to have the Salisbury seminar, and they would bring in, huge national speakers. They'd have Leo Stapleton, they'd have a Jerry Tracy, and these were names that outside of the mainstream people didn't know, but you could sit there and approach them when you went to Bennett High School auditorium, and I can go up to Leo Stapleton, who he's scraped more freaking soot off his boot than I've ever seen, and I can say, Chief, what advice do you have for a young company level officer, an aspiring company level officer? And he pulls you aside, puts his hand on your shoulder, says, "Well, first son, you should have been an accountant." Uh, and then, but he's like, "Look, work hard, pay attention, and pray like hell that your first command is a top floor job." But I mean, he was kind of being flippant, but at the same time, he was giving you some sage advice because here's a guy who's seen more, done more, experienced more than I may have in an entire career, but was able to sit there and take some young snot-nosed kid, put his hand on their shoulder and say, "You know what? You're trying to do the right thing the right way. Let me at least put some pearls of wisdom in your head and see if you take off with them."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so out of that, there's two tangents I want to go on.
Go for it.
One, the first one, we're just going to go with the Leo Stapleton one because that was most recent, and I'm going to try and remember what the other one was. But you specifically are not going to appreciate you're not going to appreciate it. You're going to laugh at me, but we are rapidly approaching a time when you say the name Leo Stapleton that people don't know who that is.
I know.
I was fortunate enough to be asked to speak and have the ability to speak at the Delmarva Fire Conference back in, I think it was March or February. No, it was March or April. Timmy, can you put the date in there in the comments for me, please? But I was able to speak at that, and one of my slides I put in there was a comment from Alan Brunacini. Before I read it, I said, "Hey, who knows who Alan Brunacini is?" And out of the room, there was probably 30, 35 people in the room. Like 3 hands went back, and it was the guys all the way in the back that that had spoke previous to me, or it was a couple guys sitting in the front that were more senior than I was that knew who it was. But the rest of the room was crickets. I was like, "How do you guys not know who Alan Brunacini is?" Like the dude had a full career as a fire chief, which is unheard of. Like he had his first 20, 25 years as a fireman up through deputy chief, and then he did like another 20 to 23, 25 years as a fire chief in a large metropolitan department. So I think that takes us to a point where, like, we always talk about history repeats itself. One of the big discussions that always ebbs and flows in the fire service is smooth bore and fog nozzles. And if you don't do the research, if you don't know, if you don't understand, you can't make an educated decision one way or the other. So you should go out, you should flow your nozzles, you should know why you would use one when, why you should use the other at times, and all that kind of stuff. But you also need to know about these previous leaders that did great things for the fire service. So if you don't know who some of these names are that when we talk about them, like you need to look them up. You need to know who they are, and that's just me personally. Like
No,
I was shocked when I put that in there. It's like the Star Wars reference now. Like everybody, like you make a Star Wars reference from the first 3 movies, and they came out in the 80s. Like they don't know who those are.
Ben, I agree with you, and that was one of the reasons that when we would do our academy classes, or even some of our annual drills, we would put those 3 sets of footprints down there at Princess Anne or at Newark that highlighted the 3 firefighters who were killed in line of duty in Ocean City, Maryland. And if you don't know your history, you don't know your future. And I'm not saying that you have to commit everything that Alan Brunacini said to memory or Leo Stapleton said to memory, but it's we're standing on their shoulders. We're standing on people's shoulders that are very humble. Like I'll bring them up again and again. People like a Dougie Scott, the Records family in Salisbury. I mean, just looking at local names, and the lists go on and on. Everybody's making their contribution because you're part of the history in your department is now. I guarantee I could walk back in. I'm nobody from nowhere, and just because I spent a certain period of time in Ocean City doesn't mean I contributed. Doesn't mean I did anything great. Doesn't mean I did anything other than take up space. Which I hope that's not the case. But at the same time, I could walk in tomorrow and they're like, "Who the fuck are you?" I'm like, and my answer is like, well, nobody. But between here and here, I was kind of like I was on the payroll, or I was on a volunteer. I was this that, but you know it's what you're passing along for the generations to come, and sometimes we forget that because look, let's be very honest about this. We repackage a lot of stuff in the fire service, and that's not a bad thing. We take old techniques, we take old thought processes and everything else, and we update them and everything. But give credit where it's due. Let's look at the people whose shoulders we stood on, and let's look at being that purveyor of information versus trying to claim that you've stick your flag in the sand. Oh, I found a new technique. Bullshit. You may have. If you have, good on you. Write all the articles you want, and I hope that you sign my copy of Fire Engineering Magazine at FDIC one day. But at the same time, let's look at the people who came before you and did a lot of this research, or who paid their pound of flesh in the industry. And I don't take anything away from anybody, but the point being is, Ben, that to your point, I talked to my folks in my department. Do you think anybody in Palm Beach Shores, Florida, knows who Donald Fisher is? Do you think they knew who Dick Hunt is? And I mean, I see Eric Budd on here tonight. He'd appreciate this. Um, you know, Dick Hunt was an old guy. Gosh, when he came to Ocean City, he was an old guy at the American Legion Hall that was a fireman in D.C. for years, and he was back during like the Iroquois theater fire days. And I mean, and he would tell us these stories. We have story time with Dick, and we'd literally sit there at the day room at headquarters, and he would tell us about all these things, way back in the 30s and 40s when he was coming up, and he lived a lot of that history, a lot of these case studies that we looked at. And now, side note, which I know you'll find this humorous, he had paid his pound of flesh over and over again. He was an old, salty, leather lung fireman. He was deaf as a post for the most part. And I'll just say this and I'll move on. But, we get a call, we get an EMS call for a malfunctioning defibrillator. And, old Dick Hunt would go, "Jesus Christ." He had this really high pitched voice. He's a very slightly built guy, really, really kind of skinny little guy, but he was tough as nails. He goes, "Jesus Christ, that's horrible. A malfunctioning refrigerator. Jesus, they'll call you boys for anything." We're like, "No, Dick, it's a malfunctioning defibrillator." "Oh, shit, that's even worse." But I mean, here's a guy who just had the humor. He would tell us the fire stories, but I tell my folks a lot. You look at someone like Donald Fisher, who was the chief there for many, many years in Ocean City, very instrumental in the structure and development of that department. Who a very quiet man, but when he came down to Dorchester Street and sat on that bench and would talk to you, he didn't say a whole lot, but when he did, it behooved you to listen. And he would sit there. He had been out of the mainstream of the fire service for many years, but he could break it down to you about building construction and what was what, and why that building is what it is today, and how it became what it is, and apparatus placement. And I mean, he was sitting there talking to me about hazmat one day, and I mean, my mind was blown. So we have that obligation, regardless of your tenure in the fire service. I don't care whether you've been in 6 days, 6 months, 6 years, or 60 years. We have that obligation to pass that along to people. And look at some of the people in the past, and kind of keep some of those people alive. When we take some of the new people in the firehouse, walk around, look at some of those old black and white pictures, or what's it called, sepia, whatever that thing is. It kind of looks old, but not quite as old. And talk to them about that. Talk to some of the people who've been around for a while, and you'd be amazed. Now, look, Donald Fisher would tell me about people in the department. He goes, "Oh, don't listen to that son of a bitch. He's been here for 50 years, but hadn't done shit in 49. Well, excuse me. That was valuable information. So, not everybody who has longevity or experience, has anything good to say. But look at their service and look at what they brought to the department. And Again, I'm very proud of the people that I work with because recently I've not been able to be as hands on as I'd like to have been for the last, I'd say, 3.5, 4 weeks. And, I'm amazed, but not amazed by just the ability of the folks that I work with to pick the ball up and run with it because they know they can do it. They know they have the backing. And if they make a bad decision, we're going to talk about the bad decision. But if they make no decision, we're going to have issues. So they'll make a decision and they'll go with it. And, that to me, that's what it's all about, Ben, is, that we provide those things. And, you and I had the pre show conversation about, how does your view change from that maybe 2, 5, 10 year firefighter to that 3 decade firefighter. And there is a little bit of a change, but I think it's incumbent upon us, all of us, as we do gain some perspective, to pass down the why behind that perspective to our people so they understand why we're making a decision that, oh, that he just an old dumb son of a bitch. Well, yeah, guess what? I might be an old dumb son of a bitch. That is true. I mean, I take nothing away from that assessment. I mean, that might be spot on, but nevertheless, they understand why I'm an old dumb son of a bitch. Or they kind of say, wow, I never thought of it in those terms. Or they don't look as globally at something, because if I'm on an engine company or a truck company, I've got my blinders on. I'm very fixed on my mission. That lieutenant has a little bit broader perspective. That captain even broader. That BC or AC or DC even broader. And chief of the department, they even have a wider perspective. Not saying it's right. I'm just saying the perspective changes based on your role and responsibility and tenure.
Yeah, yeah, and that takes me back to the other tangent I wanted to go down, and I think the perspective is a great way to delve into that. And we were talking about, you go to a fire, you get pulled out, and you go over to the incident commander, whatever rank they may be. Is it a captain acting up? Is it your assistant battalion, whatever? And you say, "What, we had it." You know, your your job as the company officer is, you're right behind your fire. You're the guy on the nozzle, the guy on the pipe, whatever you want to call it, making the push. Like, again, your view is what's directly in front of you. Oh, correction. The guy on the nozzle, the person on the nozzle, their view, their job is to put the fire out. Your job as the company officer is to monitor everything else around them. So if something happens, you can say, "Hey, fire over here. Let's put this fire out. Do whatever, and keep moving in the right direction." And then if you see something or something happens to you, the person on the nozzle, you're right there and you can take over because your experience has taken you there before and you've done that before and you can do it. When you make that transition outside the building and you're no longer going in and you see the bigger picture of the whole thing, which is probably one of the hardest transitions in the fire service, you now have to make those decisions and go back and forth between, yeah, we're going to keep going, or no, we need to change our tactics and pull people out. We're going to go defensive and figure out what you're going to do. And I think that is one of the things that we don't give people enough credit for, is one, making that transition. Again, making that transition from a company level officer to a command level officer is a huge transition. We always talk about going across the floor and being the lieutenant, the captain, whatever it is, and it's hard because at some point you're gonna have to sit down and have a difficult conversation with probably some of your friends. But when you make that transition from that company level to the command level, now not only are you responsible for the people that you used to supervise and are your friends when you were riding the fires and on your engine, on your truck, on your rescue, whatever it is, now you're responsible for not only those group, but maybe 2 other firehouses, maybe 3 other firehouses. So you have, like, that, the weight of that responsibility is so much greater. And now you have to be responsible. You have to make a decision that, yeah, if it was me, I know I could put the fire out, but I'm not in there. Like, I know my company officers are good officers. I know the people on the pipe are good, but there's that gut feeling, whatever it is, your previous experience knows that is not a good situation. It's no longer tenable. We need to back people out. That's a difficult decision. And as a former acting assistant, like, I was fortunate I never had to make that call. But like that's a tough spot, and
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
Trevor, you were an assistant chief, you were a shift commander, so at the time I was a captain, is now battalion chief, and now being the chief of department. What are some of those things that you have found in addition to that are some big struggles when you make those changes?
Well, Ben, I mean, you've essentially said it all. And I want to go back to something that Mike Wood said a show or two ago. Is we know the players are on our team, or if we don't, shame on us, but we should know the players on our team, whether it's your shift, your engine company, truck company, whatever the case is. And I know that changes because we have people who are detail, we got people in overtime, we got the people who live close to the firehouse, far away from the fire, whatever the case is. So we do the best we can with the information at hand. However, to Mike's point, we know that these people are supposed to be able to make whatever play that we give them, in his football analogy. But there's some players that are the best suited. Doesn't mean that someone else is not. It just means that this person has all the right things that I need in this very moment. And let's just be very, very honest about it. And this is where I struggle with SOP, SOG driven operations versus priority based operations. We can say our people are trained to a certain level, and that may be clerically true. And what I mean by that is, yes, on paper, they met the JPRs, blah, 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 whatever. And they're a firefighter 1, 2, 3, 17, whatever. However, we know some people are more well suited throwing ladders. Some people are more well suited pulling hand lines. Some people like pediatric calls. Some people like geriatric calls. We all have our specialty in our areas of comfort, and we have our comfort zones. So to that end, being certified and qualified doesn't mean that you're the best person for the job. And I don't mean that offensively, but you as an individual firefighter need to come to grips with your capabilities and limitations. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't be promoted or anything. Let's take all the horsefuckery out of this and look at yourself individually. And look, I have things that I love and enjoy, and there's things I'm like, shit, I'll do it if I need to, but it's not my favorite. But even at that, I've taken the pride to say I'm going to take my weakness and turn it into a strength and do the best I can with it. So what I'm getting at is, to that end, I look day by day and say, who do I have on this first in engine company? Who do I have on this first in crew? What do I have? And my tactics, although SOPs say X, Y, and Z, I'm either going to, going back to, my Scottyisms, I'm either going to unclip that leash and let the dogs run, or I'm going to clip the leash and kind of pull them back a little bit because I know their capabilities and limitations. That's going to keep them safe, but I also have to have a reasonable expectation that, if I'm looking at this building fire and we got some shit going on, and they're going down the hallway and I don't see an appreciable change in conditions in a certain amount of time, I'm pulling them back. There might be another crew where I don't see an appreciable change in conditions, and I might give them another 15, 30 seconds because I know that they're going to call. I know this is a crew that's going to call me and say, hey, we've come up against something, whatever. So there's a balance there. And, I have never once yet either put in for a line item, been issued, or been granted a crystal ball where I know exactly what my crew is seeing, how they're seeing it, what conditions they're facing. I have to rely on their eyes, ears, and experience, and and have that trust. And that's something that develops over time. You can't mandate it, you can't issue it, you can't do any of this stuff. It's going to be individual, and that's very hard for people to hear because people get butt hurt. And look, again, I have my capabilities and limitations. I've said the same thing that's been said to me. I've gone to people. Chris G teases me about it from time to time, where I go, "Hey G, do me a favor, go up there and put that effing fire out." And because things weren't progressing, and the next thing G and his man to marry people, they go up a stairwell and it goes from dark smoke to steam. And it's like, thank you. Or I've been told the same thing, but it was incumbent upon me to come back and say, hey, this is beyond our capabilities, or take the BS pride out of it and be very honest about your assessment. Everything we do should be mission driven, and Again, it goes back to the people who are in that building, the people who reside in that building, who might have to try to inhabit that building again, whatever the case is. I don't care whether it's a fire call, EMS call, rescue call, hazmat, no matter what. Be cognizant of your capabilities and limitations. Be honest when something exceeds your capabilities and limitations so you can get the appropriate resources there. That's nothing against you. And that's a very hard pride pill to swallow. It really, really is. Because think about it. We're problem solvers. We're firefighters. We're EMTs. We're paramedics. We're hazmat tech. We're special ops people. And we never want to say we can't do it. Well, we can stabilize, but here's the difference. I'd rather tell my IC, Chief, I can stabilize this, but we're going to go from point A to point B, but you got to get somebody else to go from B to C because this is all we can maintain. Be honest with it. And that to me, it not only does that grow, your points and your capital, but it makes us all better because guess what? We can't be all things to all people at all times. We're good at a lot of stuff. We really are, but we're not excellent. I mean, I'd rather be great at 2 things than half-assed at 6 things. And that's where I think sometimes we get pushed administratively and also politically sometimes to say, gee, now we got a global pandemic. Let's do this. And now shit, we got anthrax and we got there's a breaking point. And I draw lines in the sand with my mayor and commission regularly. And is it fun going up to my boss and saying, no, make it happen? No, you need to make it happen. Well, I can't go, I can't squeeze one out. And so be honest about your capabilities and limitations and say, okay, if you want to make this happen, here's what I need in order to make this happen, not only for the benefit of this community and for the safety that we're trying to provide in the service, but also for the safety and security of the people who are providing that service. So if you're willing to do that, which takes time, effort, training, money, resource, let's go down the list. So you just have to be very honest and have, to your point, Ben, have those difficult conversations. They're not fun, but be able to assess as, I don't care if you're a probationary firefighter, a crew leader, senior driver, operator, lieutenant captain, whatever glitter shit you have on your collar or whatever you have on your sleeve. Be very cognizant of your own capabilities, your own limitations, project them to the people that you work with and for so they know exactly how to use you and not use you in those times, because I don't want someone putting me in a position that I'm not capable of handling. Or if they do, I want to be able to have a resource that I can reach out to. But that we just have to have the honest conversation starting with ourselves and then even on our shifts and say, hey, no shame in that. Let's just figure it out. Because think about it, Ben. I'll look at you in Ocean City as a full-time person. You're a firefighter, you're a paramedic, you're a driver operator, and you're also an instant commander on scenes. I mean, and I'm minimalizing. I'm not. Please don't take it the wrong way. I don't mean that at all. But I'm really minimizing to the bare bones your basic daily responsibilities of when you set foot in the firehouse. And how long have you been working for Ocean City full time?
9 months.
Okay, so to that end, think about that.
Yeah,
you're not just some guy on the back step who's taking orders. You're running a crew. You're responsible for people. You're responsible for not only people but a station, not just one piece of apparatus, but everything in there as a full-time person. So that's kind of what I'm getting at is a lot of times we load people up with responsibilities to the point that we set them up for failure unwittingly. And then if you were to fail, where do you think that finger is going to point first?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I'm sorry. That guy right here, him. So, but that's my point is that, if we throw so many balls at you that you can't juggle them anymore, and then we expect you, so just like when let's take a simple call. You go to a fire alarm activation, you're working at the Four House, you go to the Irene condominium for bells on the 12th floor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You go there, you get there, Who knows? You might be the driver operator that day and the IC. Right
Yeah,
off the bat, I've created a funnel for you that you cannot. Ben, you're a smart guy, you're an accomplished guy, you're an educated guy. I have
yeah,
all the faith in the world, but I can only put so much on your back before you collapse.
yeah.
And I've
That's no
already
one's situation.
I've already put that on. So what I've done is I put that on you, hoping and gambling that things aren't going to go from sugar to shit real quick, and if they do, that you're going to scream for help loud enough, and you can kind of maintain an equilibrium long enough that we get you some help.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you
That's
a perfect.
that's where
I'll
you
give you
live.
a perfect. Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. It was me and so we got hired. The group of six of us got hired in August of last year. There was another three that got hired in December, and I was working with one of the new three, um, and a great kid, love him to death. He ended up coming to our shift. Great guy, and we get a fire alarm activation at I think it was the flagship. Um, I'm driving the wagon. We got he's riding the seat, and we got a part timer in the back who is very capable. Does a nice job as a good kid, um, good fireman, and we pull up, nothing showing, like nobody's working. The place is closed for the winter. Come around the side, we got water flow from the sprinkler room. Water's running out the first floor, the door out of the stairwell. They open the door, and they got a light haze that comes out the top of the door. Now that was unbeknownst to me. They had made their way around to the sprinkler room, the pump room, and made access, and we're going in. And I come around, and at this point, it had dissipated enough that I didn't see it. But they get up on the second floor, and they had a spring. They had somebody had left the Clorox wipes on one of the stove burners, and I guess like the spring had been old. They lean up against it, turns it on, catches the thing on fire. The sprinkler puts it out, but we had a smoke condition on the second floor, and we're talking afterwards. Like there was nobody in the building, everything was fine. We shut the sprinkler off, all that jazz. And I said, "What did you think?" And again, I'm what 4 months newer than this, or 4 months more senior than this guy in the department. I said, what was your thought when you opened the door and you had that smoke come out? Well, I didn't think it was good. I was like, yeah, it's probably bad. Then you walk upstairs and you're walking through all this, and you make it to the second floor and you got smoke in the hallway. Yeah, it was probably bad too. I said, what is what's the criteria for upgrading it? I said, well, I don't know. I said, that's your question because I don't know that I don't know that I have a department answer for you. I said I can tell you that with the three of us here, that I popped the door and I got smoke that kind of lazy smoke that comes out. I'm upgrading it because there's three of us here. Like I don't like the special call. Like give me an extra engine, give me an extra truck, give me an extra unit. Like what are they going to send you? Like you might get the traffic control. Like the fuck is that going to do for me? You know, if you say give me the upgrade, you're going to get a building fire response at that point. Like again, you don't need to know necessarily 4 months in, 2 months in, what's on the building fire response. Like you should have an idea, but you don't need to know exactly what you're getting or where your mutual aid's coming from. But you know that you're going to get more resources, and the important thing that you're going to get at that point are the chief officers to help guide the rest of the incident. Said we at that point we go from to manage the whole incident, figure out what's going on, and take care of it. To at that point, we just need to take care of whatever's happening. Is the compartment that the fire was in? Is the compartment out? Is there somebody in there? Is there a patient? Is there something else that we need to worry about that is more important than the talk on the radio and the command and all that kind of stuff? I'm not saying that's not important, but like if there's three of us and we have to prioritize what we're doing, talking on the radio and giving updates is not it. Like for me at least, So we had a great conversation, and I'm fortunate that I get to work with him the rest of the summer. Again, I think he's a great kid. I'm excited. one of the reasons I'm excited to go back to shift work is to get to work with him. Um, but it was a great conversation because there was questions back and forth, and there's a lot of stuff that was like, hey man, I don't know, this is what I would do. What are your thoughts? Even the kid in the back who was a part time a good kid and again knows his stuff. Like he's asking questions. We're like kind of round tabling it as we're driving back in the engine, and it was a great conversation. We get back, we talk to the chief. Chief, what are your thoughts? This is what we were thinking. He's like, oh yeah, sounds great. That's what I would do. So now we have a kind of an expectation for our shift. What we're going to do. We come into that situation again. So having those questions, asking questions up and down the chain, and like you said, laterally, like helps you get a better idea of the expectation, and it gets you a little bit more experience. It gets you a little bit more insight into those situations that you could be placed in.
No,
So
Ben, I agree with you. I think part of it also is not only having a respect for your chain of command, but also understanding, and you said it very eloquently, being able to lead upward, downward, and laterally. I had a situation within the last couple of months where my one of my engine crews was they went to grab some dinner, and they're sitting in I we don't get so wound up if they actually sit down and eat somewhere. I know that's depends on where you are with stuff, but this was an appropriate venue. And so long and short of it is they were literally probably at the most 35 feet out of their first due area, sitting in this restaurant. And the next thing you know, the fire alarm goes off, and somebody had overcooked something in the kitchen, and it's not their first due, but they're right there. They're going to respond, do the right thing. Herein lied the problem. We had a very highly motivated crew member who took it upon himself to self-dispatch instead of going through the shift commander who was there, to self-dispatch. And in the meantime, I'm looking because I'm home. This is in the evening hours. I'm like, oh, that's a funky address. What did we just get called on mutual aid? So now you've piqued my interest because this is we typically don't get called for mutual aid in this particular area. I'm like, so now I'm getting up and going, and turns out that if they had gone through the shift commander, and the shift commander had said, hey, look, go ahead and call this in to to dispatch, put us on scene, everything worked out fine. But the battalion chief for that department should have been notified right away.
mm-hmm.
And I had no problem with my guys taking initiative and action. They were there. Of course, if someone dropped out with cardiac arrest, I wouldn't expect them to go, oh, it's not our territory. No, handle the situation, but make the proper notifications. But so here, this battalion chief, the department whose area this was in never got notified. A little bit problematic until later. The BC shows up. He's super, super cool guy. I can't say enough nice about him. But nevertheless, if this had gone through the appropriate channel to the shift commander who was there, but the shift commander didn't even know that this kid had called dispatch until they got alerted for the call. So my thing is, there's a fine line between motivation and freelancing. But just like with that, in your situation, Ben, if they had something where if there's any question, hey, what I don't even, that's sad, Ben. I don't even know what your call sign is. What's your call sign in Ocean City?
7488.
Ew. I was 7408. So wow, look at that.
I don't know. This might hurt your feeling. 11 times better, babe.
Anyway, moving
Cheers.
on. Cheers. So, maybe so. So anyway, but point being is, if they called and said, whoever to 7488, I have a smoke condition on this floor, and just notified you, versus and I'm not taking anything away from the individual because I don't know, wasn't there anything else, but that to me, that's having that communication conduit to be able to say, this is what we have, And if they've not either been educated or empowered to make that decision or that call, kick that information up the chain. What are you seeing? We don't care what it, put it on you. That's why they pay you dozens of dollars, Ben,
Hmm.
is
Those
to make.
dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Before taxes, but
Yeah.
that's why they pay you dozens of dollars, is to make those decisions. And then, but if they said, hey, we have an odor of smoke, we have a haze, whatever, just transmit the information to you, make
Hmm.
you the funnel. But instead of just going, oh, we see this, let's keep going. We see this. And
Hmm.
again, if that's not been part of the culture they've been brought up in, you can't fault them
Yeah.
for doing what they did. And I'm glad that you took the opportunity to have that discussion. But quite frankly, that needs to be part of the culture, that if it's unknown, you're uncertain, unsure, and if you're not 110% confident that this is X, Y, and Z, kick that shit up to the next person who's getting paid 87 cents more than you an hour to
Hmm.
make that decision, and then you can kick it up, and we can you can push a turd uphill, and that's
That's right.
so. But just create that culture that you can do that, because at the end of the day, decisions get made quicker. And and then if it's something that if it's a decision they could have made or didn't know they could have made, then that's another training opportunity. I mean,
Hmm.
this is so much of an opportunity for us to become better, and I think we squander that pretty often.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, so we're at like an hour and 10 minutes. Do me a favor. Let's go ahead and give like some of your closing thoughts. I need to run out real quick, and I'll be right back in.
Should we go around the horn?
Yeah, we're gonna start with you.
Uh,
We're gonna play a game tonight. It's we're gonna go. We're gonna. It's a short game of pong.
I like it. Now
That's
what?
that's another reference that people won't get.
Ben, you're killing me, brother. All right. Well, while Ben's going down to squat to pee, whatever he's doing right now. Thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Ben and I were just having a general conversation about strategy, tactics, some of the things that we empower people to do, some of the things we don't. But at the end of the day, I really think that we have a great opportunity to talk to our firefighters and talk to the people who are on these shifts and give them some guidelines. And not that those guidelines are always going to suffice and be all inclusive and take care of every potential opportunity that there is, but we have the ability to empower people to make decisions and at least transmit information. They shouldn't be ever afraid or hesitant to tell us what's going on and pass that information down. Something very minute could be something extremely important for us to consider at a command or an incident level, and for us to make some tactical decisions based on. And even at that, it goes back to crew resource management. We talk a big game about it, but sometimes we get very regimented in our different our different silos. Where if we have a brand new firefighter who says, "Hey, chief, I think this is unsafe," and we start saying, kid, back when I was your age, we used to do this, and walk uphill both ways in the snow. What There's a balance of things. There's a way and manner that we communicate with each other. But nevertheless, I think that if we're going to talk about crew resource management, if we're going to employ some of these things that we say are part of our culture and part of our value system in the fire service, then we have to mean it. Now, again, there's a way and manner in which we can approach things, but don't be afraid to speak up if you see something that doesn't look quite right. We'll have that conversation, but don't think for a minute that every officer has every answer or they've been trained to the level they should have been. I'm not taking anything away from any of the officers, chief officers included, but people have capabilities and people have limitations. We all do. And those decisions that we make are based on those capabilities, limitations, and also those capabilities and limitations reflect our experiences. So, if it's something we've never done and we don't feel comfortable with, we might make a much, much more reserved and conservative decision. If it's something we've done a million times, we might make a very aggressive decision that may or may not be correct. Because just because I feel comfortable doesn't mean that that crew that I've sent to do that duty has the same level of comfort or that same aggressiveness doesn't take anything away from them. It just means that they might not see things through the same lens that I do. So this is where we have to have those difficult conversations, as Ben alluded to, and be able to talk amongst ourselves, respect the fact that people have different experiences, different tenures, different everything in the fire service, and capitalize on those things. To really quick to just kind of land the plane on this, I used to send around in my early tenure as a lieutenant, I used to send around a shift resource list. And part of that was there were skill sets that people had that I had no idea that they had. I mean, I had some people who were electricians, who were carpenters, who were accountants, who were, they had all sorts of things. And when it came down to it, I wasn't the one who always had to carry the ball. I might have called the play, but I didn't have to carry the ball because there was somebody much more well suited. And with that being said, I think that having those open discussions and conversations with your personnel, finding out what makes them tick, and the sad part is sometimes you get thrown in the Yahtzee cup and put on a different shift, but then you start the process again. But find out the capabilities and limitations, but start with yourself. Be very honest in your self assessment, and if you have something that you're not comfortable with, figure out a way to make yourself more comfortable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, Trevor. We had we got a
Hairball.
little group chat with some couple of the guys on the shift, and one of them posted a 12 lead that he put in the picture, and I look at it, I was like, holy shit, that looks bad. Like calling a STEMI, going to the cath lab, all that kind of stuff, and they're both like, yeah, no, that's not a STEMI. I was like, well, what am I missing? You know, like help me understand. I am the oldest person in that group chat. I've been a paramedic the longest out of the people in that group chat, but due to my time out of or away from providing care as a primary care provider or primary clinician, as a paramedic, and
Well,
getting back into
that's like a big officer word, clinician.
right. What in Maryland we're no longer providers, we're clinicians. Uh,
Seriously?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. That's why I wore a collared shirt tonight.
Is that with a capital C or like a little c?
It's a K. We're classy.
C.
K.
Wow.
Um,
Clinician.
yeah, yeah. Write that down. Write that down. That's something you guys can change in
I,
flow
I,
right
I, I can't spell clinician.
I don't either. um,
Clinic Ian.
yeah, but that was one of the things I talked to these guys about. I was like, okay, so what's going on here that you guys are saying it's not a STEMI? Maybe we can explain this to the dumb paramedic in the group. Dot dot dot. I'm the dumb paramedic in the group. So I'm getting these guys that are our level of education for 12 leads, even in paramedic school, was not. I don't want to say like we got it, but one, it was so long ago, and two, things so much has changed in the time. So I haven't kept up like I should. Um, and these guys are sharp. These guys are good. So taking that opportunity to learn from them, I truly look forward to when I go on calls with them, or if I know that like I'm on a call, I get back, and my buddy is just getting back from another call. Like, hey man, what'd you have? What'd you do? All right, this is what I had. Tell me what you think about this. This is what I did. And sometimes they're like, yeah, 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 no, that's what I would do. Did you think about this? Like, yeah, I did that. I forgot, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, ooh, I don't know if I've done that. That might be, you might want to be careful with that. So it's stuff like that is really enjoyable. So I know you mentioned it leading up and down the chain. We talked about it a couple times tonight. Like, you get that opportunity, like, go and have that talk with your lieutenant, captain, battalion chief, whatever it is, your next line supervisor up. If that's something that you aspire to one day, like, you're going to want that information. You're going to want to know what their mindset is, why they thought the way that they thought. And at the same time, like you said, you pass around to your shift. Hey, what do you guys do? What do you like? What are you good at? So that way, when that call comes in and you need to frame something, you need to build a shore, you need to build a support. You're not having the accountant who's on the call trying to figure it out. Like, you call the guy that did that for 10 years to come in and build those shores. Knows that built houses and they can look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is what we got to do, and you're done in 5 minutes versus you're not sure how it's going to go. So um, I think that's fantastic. Like having that relationship with your crew, building the culture of taking care of each other, doing the right thing, um, and taking care of the patients and the people that you go to, because ultimately that's what we're there for, right? Like our job is to go and help these people. They don't give a shit if it's the 30th call of the day for us. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Like they don't care. It's not their problem. It's not their worry, right? That's what our job is. So go and give them the service that that they deserve. Um, so that's my thing. That's it. Um, that's my wrap up. So as we wrap the whole thing up and we land this plane all together, we're looking ahead. I know Trevor and we've talked about a number of things. Anybody out there that's instructors that you teach, if you're interested in teaching, if you have a class that you've taught, FDIC just posted that they're accepting or they're putting out the call for classes. So go check that out for next year. It's going back to April. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's going back to April. Go check that out. If you guys, if you're putting classes in, let us know. We want to hear about it. Maybe it'll be a show topic one night. Um, I'm sure Trevor, Bobby, Mike, and I are going to be talking. See if we're going to put stuff in. Again, Wichita Hot, which is October 12, 13, 14, right around there. Strike the Box is going out there managing the Mayday, and that's totally based on the companies operating in and around the structure at the time of the Mayday. So it's not going to be the RIT team activation from outside coming in. It's going to be whoever's right there to help manage that Mayday. So it's going to be a great class. We haven't taught it yet. We're in the process of putting the final touches and polishing it up, making sure we don't look like a bunch of fools, which we won't. So that's coming. WichitaHot.com, I believe, is their website. So go check them out. Unfortunately, I've not been. I've heard, again, from the guys that it's a great conference. So go check it out. If you can get out there, go. Apparently, classes fill up really quickly, so get on it. Our future topics, again, we talk a lot about stuff that we want to do. I know one thing that, for whatever it's been pulling at me, is lithium-ion batteries, the mobility devices, all that kind of stuff, and incidents revolving around those. So, one, if you're a hazmat nerd, send me a message either through the face space, Instagram, whatever, TikTok, whatever it is. Um, get up with me because I want to talk to you. I want to pick your brain about it. But that's something that I want to. I've talked to Trevor. I want to do a show about coming up soon. I've talked to Mike and a couple guys that have connections with the FDNY. So between Baltimore City and the FDNY that have seen some of these incidents, we're getting some information on that. And then after that, it's we've mentioned before we want to try and get Doug Scott on. I'm gonna start beating him up a little bit more as we're coming into summer to see if we can't get him. The man is. I mean, we can't talk about him enough and say enough great things. So it'd be nice to actually get him on the show. Um, Trevor, what are you thinking? What else have we kicked around?
Well, we've had a lot of topics because we talk about a lot of stuff both on the show and offline. When you talk about the Wichita Hot class, the managing the Mayday, I mean, we've done things kind of sporadically and individually and kind of loosely in that realm. But this is an opportunity for me, you, Ben, and Bob, or excuse me, me, you, Mike, and Bobby, to put it all together. We've done some stuff before. Of course, Ray McCormick's out there with us, which is going to be phenomenal as well because he's certainly well respected in the fire service and has a lot to contribute to everybody. But whether it's company level operations, leadership, any of these things, I think that we have a really good cadre of people, not only just who've been on the show, but also that we reach out to because we don't have all the answers. We never purport to be those folks, but we have a lot of contacts in the industry, a lot of people who have some really great initiatives and views on some of the current topics in the fire service, and I certainly want to bring their voices to the chorus that we bring forward on the show. to try to educate our brothers and sisters. Excuse me.
You all right, buddy? You gonna make it?
Yeah, little hairball.
All right. So, so with that being said, we thank you guys for joining us tonight. Again, if there's any questions, or like I said, we're any of my hazmat nerds, um, get up with us. Let us know. I'd be interested to pick your brain, and we'll go from there. So, tentatively, I say tentatively now because our schedule is what it is. We're looking at 2 weeks from now. So everybody have a safe and happy Memorial Day. Remember the reason for the holiday. It's not for grilling and having a good time. It's for remembrance of those that gave their lives for our great nation and the freedoms that we enjoy today. So with that being said, cheers, my friend,
Cheers.
and have a good night. Stay safe.
All right, love you, brother.